Okay, it's 6 o'clock. I'll start off with a public hearing of June 27th, 2016. I have to wait till it loads now. Come on. Yeah, I know. Oh, you got that. Okay. Under the authority of the Planning Act, notice of a public hearing application for variance order under Town of the Paw zoning bylaw number 4121 as amended. So we're having this hearing to discuss, oops, boom, boom, boom. My machine isn't working. Can I just have a look at yours? Okay, it's variation application number 0516. The owner and applicant is True Blue Developments. The proposal to vary the established parking requirements to permit office space and 5 apartments. So we'll be rezoning this from current zoning requirements to new, from the 8 required parking spots to 5 parking spots. And this is on Fisher Avenue in the 400 block of Fisher. Still hasn't loaded. So at this point, if anybody would like to speak on this public hearing, if they could come forward, state their name for the record, and give us your address, please.
My name is Rob White, and I own property at 314 Dufferin in the Paw. And I'm here representing the piece of property I own at 320 and 328 Fisher Avenue. I have issues with this for a few reasons. This is kind of off the topic, but I think some of these buildings that are old and condemned, the town of the Paw should look at doing something to get rid of them. It would only help to move our town forward, beautify the community. But as far as this, as far as reducing the parking to 5 from 8, I have a copy of the bylaw here, and a parking space in the town of the Paw is considered to be 10 feet by 20 feet. True Blue, the property owners, when they do what they propose to do here, they'll be left with 50 feet to the back lane of their property. Their lot is 33 feet wide. That gives them a turning radius of 13 feet, which is pretty tight in my mind. When you're accessing a garage off the back feet, the town of the Paw has a bylaw where you have to be 10 feet off the back lane. Now, I'm not too sure how wide the back lane is, but I know it's a lot wider than 13 feet. And I don't know what your feelings are on the bylaws that were passed in the past here as a council, but my feeling is these bylaws are put in place because they needed to be. So if you require 8 parking spots for that building, I don't think we should reduce it to 5. If you try to get a parking spot in downtown The Paw, most times during the day, they're very hard to come by. If you reduce it to 5 for Mr. True Blue, I think where are the other 3 people going to park? On the street? More than likely. And looking at his proposal here on the building, he's going to be left with 50 feet from the back of his building to the back lane. Now, I've seen places where vehicles nose in to a building to park, but never where you pull a vehicle up sideways to a building and park tight to the building. I think that that's poor parking. I don't know if you have any planning on that sort of thing, but I just think it shouldn't be done. Like, I think I'm totally against this for a number of reasons. And are we that hard up in this community to try to scrape together a few more dollars on our taxes? I say no. And something else I would also like to see, when council votes on this, I think if anybody has a conflict of interest, they should step aside and not put a vote in on this. And when I say a conflict of interest, I mean going forward, if you set a precedent here and say that, yeah, we're going to allow this to be done, then a developer such as myself or anybody else in this room will come forward expecting the same thing to happen. So,
Okay.
that's where I stand. Thank you very much.
Okay. Anything else? Anybody want to have any comments on that at all? Or?
Any questions? Mr. Rock, you look like you want to ask me something.
No, I'm fine.
Okay. Thank you.
Doing the case.
Pardon me?
I've been by there as well. I don't think you could get 8 cars in there as it stands today.
No, you couldn't if you.
No. So
unless
that's
you
our
plow.
ongoing, this is a bit of a separate issue, but in all those buildings along, I have some and you have some, we've all got some, right? So how do we deal with it going forward?
To me, going forward, we should try to update this town. Instead of taking every dilapidated, ran-down building in the town of the Paw and try to put a Band-Aid on it.
I agree with what you're
Let's-
saying about dealing with condemned buildings, but that's a separate discussion from here. I totally
Yeah.
agree.
Oh,
And I think
totally, yeah.
I have some ideas too, but in a case like this, at 10 by 20, and I just eyeballed it, there's no way you're getting 8 parking spots
You're getting 4 in there.
today without nothing being done. Without doing this, as it sits today, I'd be shocked if you could get 8 in there. So how do you deal with a case like that?
We turned it down.
Then you can't use the building for anything.
He can as just as well as anybody else can that goes downtown and buys a building and leaves it as it is.
But you know what I'm saying, Rob? Like right
Yeah,
now,
well,
it says you're allowed 8 parking stalls, and I don't think you can make that work, but, I mean, if he does nothing to it, he has technically 8 parking stalls.
No, he doesn't. He has 50 feet by 33 feet there
Without doing any addition,
without doing anything, yeah.
as it sits right now.
But because he wants to go in there, like he's taken a building that was condemned, like he purchased a building that was condemned for like very little money, and now he's coming forward and he wants to build a structure on there. And he wants you to say, okay, we'll allow you to go with the 4 parking stalls, because that's all he's got room for, let's face it. Like anybody with any sort of IQ can figure that one out. To me, it's black and white. Like it's, we need housing in this community for people to live in. We don't necessarily need it downtown. And we have a dying business community for a lot of reasons. Like I think it's time to move forward and not keep going backwards or sideways.
The discussion that we're going to have amongst ourselves is, because what you're asking us to do here is it's not an unprecedented move. We've had variation orders before, because you're trying to keep your downtown alive. So you go this way one way, and then you go that way the next, and so
Maybe it's time for this new council, though, moving forward to get a little bit more progressive.
maybe.
Because why do we have the bylaw in place? Like, why was it ever put in place? Maybe if going forward you want to just tell everybody.
That's
they
why you
only
have a
need-
variation
Have to.
hearing situation, so that if something doesn't fit perfectly in that box, you can apply for a variation, and that's what's happened here. So we have to talk about that and decide about that.
Right, but we did put bylaws in place for a
Sure.
reason. Yeah. And if we're short one parking space, probably not a big deal, but when
Yeah.
you're asking for half,
I know.
you know.
It wasn't that long ago, we had a bylaw in place, since I've been on council, that you couldn't leave your horse hitched up at the post office for very long either.
Well, you shouldn't
So
be
you
allowed
need to,
to.
you know, you need to look after your bylaws. So.
You shouldn't be allowed to. We
I
got
know,
nobody to
but
clean
we
up
don't
after
anymore, you
them.
can't.
Yeah.
We fixed it.
Yeah. But it stops, when we keep doing this, it stops progress in the community. When you allow somebody to take a building like that, that is that run down and in that state, and you say, yeah, we'll give you a variance for whatever you need to be able to keep that there, in the center of that block, that totally cuts off anything happening to that block. Like, a good example of that is the RCMP building. Like, if that had been a different situation where somebody owned a piece of property on half, like on a half lot, halfway through that block, we'd have never had that RCMP station there. There'd have been an empty lot, a couple dilapidated buildings, and like, it's moving forward. Like, how did the West Canada Inn get there? You know, they tore down the old buildings that were there, like the buildings that had served their time.
Pretty old.
What's that?
Pretty old.
They probably were pretty old, yeah. Yeah. And I heard what you said.
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Okay, any other comments?
So
Anybody
I
else
hope-
want to talk
I-
on this issue?
I hope you do the right thing.
Okay. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Okay, state your name and address. for the
Darrell
record.
Olson, 329 Fisher. I'd just like to maybe address Mr. Gibb there. I know he stated that, you know, things are the way they were and that, but I mean, it's like anything. If you know yourself, being a developer, the laws change, building codes, different things, so I mean...
Just to clarify, what I was getting is that we have all these old buildings downtown, and they've sort of been grandfathered through. So as it sits today,
Yeah.
it says it has 8 parking stalls, right? What
No,
I'm saying is that,
he says he has 5, he's trying to...
no, but aside from that, as it sits today, isn't this status, it has 8?
No.
It's allowed.
He's got 5.
His proposal requires 8.
And he's asked us to reduce it to 5. That doesn't mean he has 8 right now.
He doesn't have
Okay,
any.
that's, sorry, that's
Yeah.
my mistake.
He's looking for
there's a
3
difference.
on the
But I was
street.
getting at some of the old buildings we have, they've been there for 100 years, right? So there's not enough parking in this, so how do you deal if you can't tear the building down? In this case, I get is a little bit different because the building's
Right.
was in the
I
state it
mean,
was in.
if anything comes along, I mean, new health regulations come along, I sell my business, the health inspector comes along and says, that was there, this needs to be done, that needs to be done, and I mean, I'm against anything that's going to affect parking downtown that's residential. If this was business, I wouldn't be here. But I mean, someone wants to bring 5 apartments into a downtown area where I own a parking lot that I'm paying taxes on for no other purpose than parking for my business. I mean, if I didn't need it, I mean, I'll sell it to you. Let's get rid of, you know, it doesn't make any sense that, yeah, you know, it doesn't make any sense that a person should be able to bring a residential thing into the downtown area and not have the proper parking. That's my point. I mean, if it's business, it's one thing. I mean, I think Councillor Commodore could go on about downtown parking, and I mean, you guys have obviously seen a need for something. I mean, you've turned Fisher into 2-hour parking, and I mean, it's not going to get any better having 5 apartments. I mean, my business is based on lunchtime suppers. I mean, my customers come there, they can't park, they're down the road, and, you know, these people, there's going to be 5 apartments, there's going to be people visiting, there's going to be different things going on, and, you know, I think the issue is something that's residential, like that's going to happen in an area where, you know, people are paying taxes for different things, and, you know, you kind of expect some everybody to play by the same rules. I know my neighbor John here, he would have built a bigger warehouse, but he needed parking for so many to do it. So I mean, he had to downsize the size, his original plans of his warehouse, because he didn't have the parking. So I don't think a residential, you know, in downtown like that is the right thing to do. I mean, it's gonna affect my business. I know, like, It's probably one of the busier streets in downtown with, you know, with the clinic being there, and I mean, it's stopped with shoppers moving, but I mean, with my business and John's, and I mean, we're driving a lot of traffic in that area, and, you know, I don't want to give up any, and if it was business, I wouldn't be here, you know, I wouldn't be here. I mean, I'm not trying to stop any business from coming, but I'm trying to stop people from taking parking away from downtown that probably shouldn't be downtown, you know. That's all I have to say on this issue.
Okay, good. Thanks, Darrell.
Okay.
Yeah. Anybody else? John?
John Morton, Sound Innovations, 317 Fisher. I have nothing against Michael. I mean, if he wants to invest money in this community, absolutely 100%. I do have a problem with the location he's trying to do it in, for a multitude of reasons. I would love to see someone actually go measure out the back of that property and see how many parking stalls he actually really is going to have, because my math says about 2. And if you want to put 2 cars back there and try parking them and then moving out, well, go ahead, try. Obviously, this is our own thoroughfare through town. It's the main street. We have very little commerce going on in that main street. So my point is that should be for commercial, for businesses that want to start shoe shops and clothing stores and things like that. The parking issue is definitely a parking issue, but I would personally like to see the directive from the town to put it into commerce, like businesses. We have very few businesses on our main street, maybe 6 or 7 out of a 2-block. Is it 7? Yeah, that's crazy. So, I mean, I would love to be able to get Michael out of his predicament. I would even be willing to put up money to pay him out for his expenses, just to basically start to revitalize the town in business, stores, shops, boutiques, anything that's going to draw more people to the area. I mean, when you drive through as a tourist through the Pas on that main street, I've had comments from people that go, well, where is everything? You know, I see pizza places and but I don't see stores to go and shop at. So I'm a destination store. I'd like to see more of that on the main street. So.
Okay, good. Thanks, John. Anybody else? Okay, thank you very much. We will be having a meeting on this, and I think at our next council meeting we'll have our decision. It'll be made public at that time. Okay. So then we'll move into our council meeting. Call the meeting to order at...
Can I say one thing?
Sorry?
I was waiting for you to finish talking about the building you were talking about, but I would like to address everybody on something else.
Okay, well, that'll come up in a few seconds. We'll have our citizens' peer. You'll be able to talk about it at that time. All right, so we'll call the meeting to order at 6:18. I need a resolution to adopt the agenda, item number 2.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Colville. Be it resolved that the agenda be adopted as presented.
Okay, that's right.
I'd
Sorry?
like to add an amendment to the agenda if I could.
Okay.
I'd like for us to, I don't know if this is a motion, but I'd like for us to go in camera, basically at the top of the agenda to discuss some issues that have come to light over the last little bit, and I think that it's something that we need to discuss right off the top of the meeting. So I feel, I don't know if I need to go into more detail or...
I don't think you should, but
No, okay.
can that be done?
Yep.
Maybe
You can
moving
change your-
camera?
Yep, you amend your agenda to do in camera at the beginning.
I'll second that motion.
Okay.
So that would be to move the in-camera portion to the start of the meeting from...
I don't know where we would go after citizens period or right after number 3.
Okay, first of all, there's an amendment on the floor to alter the agenda to in camera at the beginning of the meeting. I'm suggesting we move it after item number 4. Is that fine?
Sounds good to me.
How do people feel about the amendment? All in favor? Okay, it's unanimous then. Never done this before. Scary. Okay, the agenda then, I can have a motion to adopt the agenda as amended. Okay, moved by...
Oh, no, you have the motion there to adopt the agenda.
I do. Okay. So all in favor of the amended motion to the amended agenda? Okay, thank you. All right, item number 3, confirmation of minutes.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Commodore. Be it resolved that the minutes of the regular council meeting and the committee of the whole meeting minutes of June 13th, 2016 be hereby approved, and all statutory declarations having been complied with.
Should I sign it? All those in favor then of the minutes? Okay, would Deputy Mayor sign these as she was in the chair?
Sure.
Okay. June 13th Committee of the Whole, was that included in that too? Yes, it was. All right. Item number 4, citizens period. Larry.
Hi there. My name's Larry Forrester. I have a business, 219 Fisher. Again, it's the billiards. It was brought to my attention, and I realized that you can work on any building for the purpose of a business to go in it. It brought to my attention that the business that was deemed as going to be a youth center is being worked on again. Now, I understand through comments and talking to other people in the community that I don't like to point fingers, but a council member as well as possibly the mayor has been involved with the people that own the building and that we're trying to put in a youth center. And it's my understanding that they found a way of getting around it being called a youth center. I've noticed that they brought in a few desks, and probably from what I understand, they're going to put in computers and they're going to call it a computer internet service provider. Now with that, I don't have a problem with another business being uptown. I love the idea of more businesses, but if it is an internet provider, then it should be for all people, doesn't matter age, race, color, whatever. I think it should be for everybody if that's the case. So I would hate to see it being used just for youth, so that it's just a roundabout way to still put in a youth center, where we had already discussed this and it was said that no youth center would be put on that location on the main street. When you go by there and you look at what they have done and what is in the building, I really can't see anybody that's using internet wanting to use foosball tables, pool tables, floor mats, gaming stuff. If it's an internet center, then it should be set up for internet, which is really inevitably a quiet space for, again, youth as well as adults. And I don't want to see people jumping through loopholes or around what's discussed in these meetings and voted on by the councillors and turned down in order to get what their ultimate goal is. So I just wanted to bring it to everybody's attention that there is work going on there. And I understand that they more than likely they pulled out the proper permits in order to do the work. But I sat here at a meeting, and when you voted against the youth center, you also voted against the variations that they had asked for the youth center, but now I'm seeing work progressing on the building. As far as I know, like I said, word of mouth in the town is that it's still going to be made for the youth. So
Okay.
I would like to see, I don't know how, but I'd like to see answers on what is going in there in some way, shape, or form. Because any business that goes into the uptown area has an effect on the businesses already there. And after listening to and reading my notes from the meeting that I attended the last time, when I mentioned that Crystal was working for the owners of the building, and you yourself, the mayor, I couldn't hear you at the time, but you had told me that she was on leave. Well, after I read some stuff, I realized that on leave still means you are employed by the same organization until you either quit or you're fired. So you have a hold on what's going on, and if you're in here voting on it as a member of council, then you shouldn't be working for that same company because you're not a biased vote anymore. You know what I mean?
Yep.
That's all I have to say.
Okay.
And I think more businesses uptown is a great idea versus youth centers and building for people to live. We're killing our uptown area. When you walk down or up the streets in uptown, nowadays you'll see everybody jumps in their car to go from point A to point B because there's no point in walking. The stores that you can shop at are so far apart from each other, you're getting in your vehicle and driving. But with a 2-hour ban also, you can't leave your vehicle, say, for instance, over by Fat Boys and walk down and shop at Mr. Morton's store and then walk down to the post office and then maybe walk over to the mall and do your shopping. You always have to go back and remove your vehicle. So if there is no parking available at Sound Innovations, do you still go to Sound Innovations? You keep on driving to the next place. If you can't go to the post office, do you park somewhere else and walk all the way back? No. The idea of an uptown area, I believe, is so that you can walk from store to store, retail to retail, and spend your money and shop on a nice leisurely basis. But with the 2-hour ban on parking now, and then I realize that the signs are up, but there hasn't been any tickets going out yet. It's a benefit to the businesses that are open from Monday to Friday and open from 8 to 5. Unfortunately for me, it's already, because of the way the town allowed a school to go uptown, it's changed my business hours from, I used to open at 11, now I open at 5 in the evening. But guess what? You're allowed to park anywhere in front of my business from 5 in the evening till 8 in the morning. So if I have somebody that's there that's impaired, I have to tell them, you either have to drive your car home or you got to come back before 8 in the morning and remove your car off the street because you're going to get a ticket. But I'm selling them alcohol. Do I want them driving home? Absolutely not. So I think the 2-hour thing is also a step in the wrong direction as far as helping businesses thrive in the uptown area. Just my take on it.
Okay.
I mean, parking meters was a good thing, I think, because if you were required to sit there for 4 hours, you paid that parking meter for 4 hours. The town made money from it. By saying you can't park there anymore for more than 2 hours, I mean, you've got Child and Family Services, Intake Place, you've got a tattoo shop on the main street, you've got hairdressing shops all on the main streets. All those places require you to be in there quite commonly for more than 2 hours. So if all of a sudden you come outside, and I told my wife when she went for her tattoo, I said, I didn't know we didn't have a bylaw officer at the time. I told her, when you come out of there, if you get a ticket for being parked for more than 2 hours because you have a 3-hour appointment, I want you to go back inside, present that ticket to Jerome and say, here, you pay the ticket. I paid $500 for the tattoo. I'm not paying the ticket too. Or my son had to go to Family Services because he helps to look after kids from Family Services. He was in there for 3.5 hours. Was it because he wanted to be there for 3.5 hours? Absolutely not. But his appointment took him 3.5 hours. Does he want to walk outside to a ticket for whatever amount, whether it's $75 or $150 because he was stuck in there for 3.5 hours? I don't think this was a a well enough thought out process when the town or the councilors are looking at the uptown area as far as business. I want to see more and more business, because more and more business uptown means more and more business for me. It means more and more business for these gentlemen, because you're walking through the uptown area, you're more apt to stop at Fat Boys and have something to eat. But if you got to get in your car and drive away, unless you're hungry and you're purposely going to Fat Boys for something to eat, you drive right by. You go to where you can get easy parking. Fortunately for Daryl, he has parking lot next door. But there is no provisions by the town or anybody else for any parking relief other than on the street, and then you've taken that away. There is no parking lots uptown that you can use without having to go through a whole channel of things to get to. It'd be different if the town had a lot uptown and they said, okay, we have parking here, and it could be paid parking. But then at least you're providing an alternative to the situation at hand, which means you got to be off that street within that 2-hour time frame and off to someplace else. Now, if with an internet cafe 2 doors down from me and me not opening till 5 o'clock at night, guess what I'm going to end up with? They're not going to be in there for an hour, hour and a half. They're going to be in there for 2 hours, 4 hours, maybe 6 hours, as long as that place is open. Now that's going to affect my business. Do I have the right to go out there and tell them they can't park there? Absolutely not. When it first started affecting my business, I did it in a very nice way. I printed out letters, I went out and I put them on the windshield and asked politely, please do not park for long periods of time in front of my business. You are affecting my business and taking my business and my lunch hour away. You know what happened? I had the Highways Department and the RCMP come and tell me I have no right to tell anybody or ask anybody not to park in front of my business, because that is a highway, it's not a town street. Now all of a sudden I'm forced with this thing that I can't even park my own vehicle in front of my own business for more than 2 hours. But I run pool tournaments. On Wednesday evening and Saturdays and other days, I run pool tournaments. Pool tournaments take more than 2 hours. They take 6 to 8 hours. Am I going to have to look at all my people getting tickets because they're parked out front? They can't use the parking lot next door. It's the only parking lot available, but it's a private parking lot.
Okay.
So I really think that we got to look at something that's feasible and viable for everybody. Not just for a few individuals, but for everybody, in order to keep the uptown area going. Otherwise, people are just packing up and moving out. There's more and more empty buildings, and I don't like seeing empty buildings. I've lived here my whole life. I remember what it was like to be able to walk from one store to the other. Nowadays, you don't see that. That's why there's so many cars uptown. Anyway.
Okay. Thank you for your time. Still in citizen spirit, anybody else have anything they'd like to present to council tonight? One more time. Okay, then according to our amended agenda, we are going to move in camera, which means see you later.
Do I have to move us into camera?
Yeah, you should probably.
So be it resolved that we now do move ourselves into the in-camera portion of the council meeting with Mayor Scott and the chair to discuss matters requiring our attention.
How long do you think?
I have no idea.